Hello and welcome to the Sinead Says podcast. I'm honoured to have Gerry Lavz. I knew I was going to say that even though I actually...
No, but potato. But let Sinead. You can call me whatever you want, and everybody. It's Gerry the nerd, Gerry the turd. I get my name actually biologically on my birth certificate is Gerry, but I've just always been nicknamed Gerry. But you can call me whatever you want, Sinead.
Yeah, no, I call you Gerry Lavz. It's funny because some people call you Cherry or Gerry Cherry, but that's like
Gerry
your stage.
Cherry as well. But it's more, I just kind of thought that it had a nice ring to it, but then whenever I think I nearly cringe out if I hear somebody saying it in person, like it looks cool as like a username, but then if somebody says like Gerry Cherry, and then I'm like, like don't say it, it's Gerry.
I know, it's like those old Hotmail addresses. Mine was sexy_Hague92.
Oh my God.
Like, why did I think I was sexy at 13 years old? And second of all, I'm pretty sure my brother did it for me. So I'm like, what the fuck?
I swear, Irish teenagers were so problematic. I'm like, did you ever have like Playboy bed? No.
Yes, I had the Playboy. I was so into it. Like I had the Playboy bed and I had like a light above my bed that said girls only and had like the bunny ears neon lights and everything. So and I'm not even joking. Like I literally like, and you know what the worst thing is why I always say I never, even though I have tattoos, I always say like I wouldn't get a tattoo because when I was 15, if my mom allowed me to get a tattoo, I'd get a Playboy on my stomach.
Yes.
So it's like things change, you know what I mean? But anyway, so Gerry Lavz is on the show today. If any of you don't know Gerry, he is one of my favorite influencers, but most importantly, I think he's a creative in my eyes. Like I love to watch his creative work and all his posts and his content. He talks about everything and has very topical conversations, and he's really opening up into the creative world. And I think like he's going to do so well. As soon as he comes and works for me and like hurries up.
I know. I always think I never take you serious whenever you say it. It's like I want you to be the content, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
I'm like, I'm being serious. I'm ready to fly you over here to Bali. But then you have your own thing as well. So like there's no point doing stuff for other people when you have your own vibe as well. But you also have your, like, I always think like you moonlight your other job because there's a little talk about it, but there's not really that much talk about it, but you do work full time as well. But just want to head in and just introduce yourself and give us
I suppose similar to Sinead, this is what I love about you, Sinead, is that your page doesn't really have any kind of rules. Like it's kind of very topical. There's like one day you could be talking about something and then it could be something completely different. And I think that's what I find personally so refreshing. But I think for me, I obviously I love fashion, I love art, I love all this type of stuff. So I kind of merge that into my content. But I think what people would enjoy the most about it is more the fact, like whenever I'm just kind of going on and having the crack, and usually I would have always done a Wednesday poll where I would have asked my audience members questions and we would have covered loads of different topics. And I think that in doing that, I think for me, that's where people started to really connect with my page, because I think once you start to create open discussions about things, whether it's love, whether it's about dating, or whether it's about your own personal experiences, if it's mental health, or even if it's just different views on different outlooks of life, I think that's whenever you really start to connect with your audience, because obviously people share similar experiences, some people have different experiences, and then I found for me it was nearly like this wee creative hub where you'd be, I don't know about you, Sinead, you'd be sitting talking to people all the time and engaging with people. So for me, that's where it all kind of really began. And I think by doing the poll and asking that these questions and doing certain topics, I think a lot of people started to maybe find me relatable. And then I think that's when the connection kind of built with an online platform. It was a very dorky answer.
No, it wasn't. It was a very Gerry answer. I loved that. Yeah. On that topic of how your Instagram grew and stuff like that, this is something that people ask me all the time. And I have a simple answer for people who always ask me to I really want to grow my following. And right, I don't know about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing that somebody can do hey, can you share my page? No,
Yeah.
it's just a no. It's not
Yes.
even that. It's just like, it's not how I ever grew myself. I grew because people shared my content because they liked it. I didn't
They
ask
liked
them
it.
to share it. And it's
Yes.
the same as you. Like, you don't, I'm sure you don't ask anyone to share.
No.
I personally shared yours way at the beginning as well.
Yes. But the thing, but as you were saying there though, like the thing is, like, of course, like sharing pages and platforms to other audiences, of course it helps, because you're sharing it to an audience who were not familiar with who you were. So whenever they go to check it out, if it aligns with their interests. But I think a lot of people think that it's this point A to point B kind of thing. And I think this is what loses the authenticity with Instagram and social media. It's like, you see the number game. The number game's the worst thing ever. I nearly wish it didn't exist, because numbers, number one, don't validate people. Because if somebody has so many likes or so many follows, that shouldn't really matter in regards to like what actually the content and the material is. But not everybody's going to like everybody. So to ask somebody like, oh, will you share my page, and then automatically assume that it's like Noah in the fucking ark, that everybody just jumps on the boat and away they go. It doesn't work that way. You kind of have to, do you know? And if like,
Yeah.
I would only share something that interests me, because then if I share it, then my audience, we share similarities of interest. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's just, it wouldn't make sense. Like, I wouldn't go and share like, oh my gosh, I love this fitness page whenever like I eat Chinese every fucking day of the week. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know. And it's just,
Like,
and like me and you struggle with that with saying no. And like we do talk about like, what do we do in this situation? But sometimes I just have to not write back because I'm just so overwhelmed with it. And I'm just like, no, because that's not how I started. And this is my advice for anyone who wants to start, even if they want for their small business, for anything. They're like, I want to grow my following. And my first bit of advice is stop looking for more followers. Start concentrating on the followers that you have, because when you start giving the best to your followers and start giving them, like, if you want to change their life, I just concentrate on those people and be like, okay, how can I change their life today? What have they not heard today that would help them? I don't think about these other people that aren't on my profile yet. I just concentrate on those. And then usually what happens is I don't grow from like randomly engaging with random profiles on my explore page. I grow because that person got something from me and then they go and share it. And that's how I grow. So that's why I always tell people, like, just concentrate on the people that you have, and then like see this whole, randomly engaging with, like, it's so unauthentic. And that's like, it's authentic to me, and I actually care about the post. Like, you'll not see me engaging. That's just how I work, and I think that's the best way to grow authentically. I just feel people are just too concentrated on this number, and if you've got 5 followers, you've got 5 customers. Do you know what I mean? It's not to do with that. So yeah, what would your advice be in that?
You see, well, this is the thing. I think I can give advice from somebody who maybe would have been a bit more from, like, so to anybody that maybe has that kind of mentality. I did at a point understand that kind of place, and I think I would never have asked somebody to share my page. I just would have been, personally, it's just not something I would do, because of mainly what you said there. But I think I have been in that kind of headspace where I'm thinking, wait a minute, like, oh, I don't have this amount, so that means that I'm da 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 da, or that I'm maybe like more, like, I started to nearly judge myself based on how much of an audience I'd have, in a negative way, as if like it nearly wasn't enough. I'm being really honest here. And I think once you start to, like, you have to remember, like, social media is really designed to nearly like really like play tricks with your head. So I think like likes, like all these different things, it's nearly like false validation. And I think as human beings, we're not emotionally like capable of absorbing that. And I'm sure, Sinead, you likely, because of the amount and the volume of like messages and like different things that you would get in regards to engagement, it can be quite overwhelming, even if you get a lot of it, like, to deal with. Like, as human beings, we're not naturally accustomed to absorb that level of like compliments or like, interest or attention. It's quite a lot to process. But I think when you don't get that, it's quite like you start to then doubt yourself, like, am I doing something wrong, or is it this, or if it's that, or it's whatever. And once you start to think like that, you're already doubting yourself. So if you're doubting yourself, how are you going to, number one, be able to produce content that makes you feel like happy, that you enjoy, that's authentic and true to yourself? And then how is people going to be able to relate and engage with it whenever you're already doubting it? Like, numbers shouldn't really matter. And I think this is what I realized. Somebody once told me this. They're like, what's the finish line? Like, what number are you wanting to get at in order for you to be happy? Are you wanting to be at like, obviously 10's great for people because it gives them like, they can do like the link and the swipe up, especially if they're like a business. I respect that, like the desire to hit that milestone. But after that, like, what is a milestone? It's great, of course, that people are tuning in and engaging, but at the same point, you still have your own life, and it shouldn't really come into like the equation. You should still be doing your own thing and focusing in your own lane. And I realized that once you start to go, do you know what? Stop giving a fuck. And that's when you stop giving a fuck, that's whenever then you're really like, you just come on, you're like, do you know what, Jesus Christ, like I've had 2 shits today. Like, has anybody ever had that? Like, once you start to be really open, maybe not that open, but maybe not. That's maybe what
open sometimes.
You know, but if you start to be really open and relatable, that's just whenever it connects. It's like, all we want is, and think of the people that you watch as well. You just want to watch people that you relate to, and so you're not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Did I answer that? I don't even know if I did. I just kind of not about a tangent.
The basic thing is to be authentic, but I wanted to like answer, because you're kind of asking there, you know, what's the end goal? What's the number? Like, like comparing, and I can talk a bit about this in terms of brain. So basically, it's a thing called, they like to call it dumb dopamine. I like to call it dumb dopamine, but it can also be known as an attention dopamine. So like basically, like this sort of dopamine in your brain wears off and you need more and more. So for example, when we first started Instagram, do you not remember like when we got 11 likes?
Yes.
And then we were buzzing, like, you know what I mean? You were buzzing, and then you got 100 likes, and then you were buzzing, and then you needed 1,000 likes to be buzzing. And now what do we need? Like, we need 10,000 likes to be buzzing. This ends. This is basically like what cocaine is like in your fucking brain. It literally like you need more and more and more every time. It just wears out your pleasure centers. So this is dumb dopamine. So it's going up and down and up and down. You need more and you need more and you need more. But what gives you a constant drip of dopamine into your brain that will keep you fulfilled and happiness is like purpose. So for me, I used to be like you. I used to be like, oh my God, I only got 1,000 likes. Like that must, there's something must be wrong with that. So those things would roll around my head. But in fact, I used to think, okay, to strip it back, all that stuff doesn't matter because all that stuff comes and goes. And then like I dip into my inbox and I'll see someone being like, Sinead, you really changed my whole mindset this year. And I'll be like, that's all I need. There's my purpose. And that just keeps me going throughout, like no matter how much attention I get or not. And that's why it's easy for me now. Like I just put something up and I'm like, whatever. But also another thing to realize is that the artist that listens to what the people want ceases to be an artist.
Yeah.
So,
I actually mind
you. You can be drowned out by what people want, and I do it every day. I sometimes don't speak about anxiety. I sometimes don't speak about the research that I find because I'm not a qualified therapist. And I decided to like not have any Instagram messages. I just said no. Can people not reach me? And that's the way I did it for a while.
Yeah.
And how I felt, I was like, there's no backlash, there's no replies to my story. Like I don't have to sway what I'm thinking or doing anymore because I'm not listening to anyone. I'm doing what I want, and then I'm like ceasing to be the artist again. And I think that is something that you were talking about as well in your close friend story as well.
It was actually you that said, I think you sent me that quote, and then I think you might have shared it one time, but it was at a time, I think it was maybe about, I think for me, I think definitely I got into my own head a lot with it. I think maybe in lockdown, because I live just with my like mom and dad. So for a lot of the period, I would be quite by myself. So social media was nearly like company to me as well. Like as in I was like, hey everybody, like what's everybody doing? Because I'm bored as fuck. And you know, I really did rely on it. I had a very much of a codependent relationship with it, and it wasn't healthy whenever you're given so much and then you kind of burn out. But I kind of got into that place where I was like, I lost the control. I think obviously the world became a lot more sensitive. Obviously we're all going through like a pandemic in our own way, but of course it brings out like certain like toxic traits in people, and then of course like online hatred started to become a thing. And I think I just became so cautious, and I was nearly afraid to say one thing because I was like I'd be thinking like, oh God, if I say this could be interpreted as this way and offend these people, or if I say this could offend that. And if you're going into something not being true to your own opinion, obviously there's being like politically correct, of course, as well. But if you can't give your own opinion on things without the fear of judgment, that's a very bad sign. It shows that you're letting like the fear of judgment overrule what it is that you actually want to do. And I think I kind of got there in my own head with it. But I think it was yeah, but you had to go through it to nearly come out of the other side to realize the importance of boundaries, as in like, right, don't absorb every single human being's opinion. You can't accommodate every single human being's opinion. You can't reply back to every single, and I think I'm still working on the replying, because I don't know. I think for me, I am always very flattered that somebody would take the time to message me. I know that sounds so stupid. It's like, fuck up. Are you trying to?
I know the feeling. I got a fucking physical injury from answering the DMs. Yeah. I went through the paces. Like,
yeah, I very quickly realized it's like, it was my perception. It was my own head that was like the saboteur, so to speak. Like, it's in, people aren't expecting you to reply and be on hand and fit 24/7. That's you putting that pressure on yourself. That's me, how I was internalizing my relationship with social media. So I think it's very important to have boundaries and the like setbacks, and turn them on occasionally whenever you want to like engage, and then have them, like, you don't want to be accessible 24/7. So you need to have a wee wall up here and there, I've learned.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know that wall very, very well.
Yeah.
Like, I was to say, but mine's are different. Like, I get like full on brain dumps, like full on people, like stories upon stories, and like I physically can't help. And like by the time I read the messages, I've spent hours there, and I could be spending hours making a book for everyone to understand.
Yeah.
So it is like it is hard to take a step back, because it took me a long time, because I was like, I feel like they are the reason where I am, so they deserve my reply.
Agree.
Then it just became right on top of me. It was like insane. Yeah. So on the talk of judgment, like, we can step into this conversation about the judgment. You know what? I'm not talking about the judgment of the internet right now. I'm not talking about that usual trolly shit that we have to deal with half the time. But like the actual judgment of like small hometown life, like, when you're trying to be like something different than whatever other people are expected to be. Like, did you experience any of that? Like, oh, who does he think he is?
Yeah. To be honest, I suppose, right, I'll put it like this, right? But then I don't know. I'll say this, right, and then I'll let you think, like, what does this mean? Okay, so I did and I didn't. So as in, I often say to myself, God, like, you're quite lucky, like, for the type of personality, and you're quite eccentric, you kind of fit in quite well into your area, and like people are very moderately, like, they tolerate you in that sense. But in regards to like what I always often find is, I always find it quite strange, is that like the people that I would connect with are people further afield. So it's not really necessarily people so much in my small town, even though I do get along with a lot of people in my area. They are a lot of them are very supportive. However, predominantly it's more the other areas, like, as in, like, say, like Belfast or like Dublin, or like kind of further away from like where, like, the town that I'm based. But I wouldn't get like the small town judgment, if that makes sense. People would be no, weirdly not. But this is the part where then I've often wondered, I'm like, is it because I'm a boy? It's not, I'm only asking the question. I've like, in regards to actual like he thinks he's unreal, or he's this or he's that or whatever, blah blah blah. You get the odd wee bit, like, I'd get maybe like the odd wee comments, or maybe like people taking the piss and stuff, but that, I think that you do get that regardless. But in regards to actual like people who would be very condemning, I wouldn't get it more so. But then I think like people in my area who are females would get it a lot worse, and that's all I'm saying on that. If you know where I'm coming from, there would be a heavier judgment towards them. And I do often wonder, is it a sexism issue, in a sense, that because I'm maybe a boy, that I'm not threatening in a sense? I mean, because obviously, if that, I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's like, just where I've always wondered with it a wee bit.
You don't get it, but I never really got it. Like, I got the odd, and I might have made it up as well, but I got the odd thing, and then some people saying some things and like
yes.
just the usual like who does she think she is sort of.
But what I often found was it was nearly I found if I got it anywhere, it would have been more so the people that I would have maybe been once formerly acquainted with, maybe say like from school, like the people still trying to make you be the person that you once were. So if you've grown and evolved, then people would be like, well, sure, he was an asshole in school, or he was da 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 da, or you know, that type of stuff I would have mainly got.
But I was an asshole in school.
So was, to be honest, so was I think, but I think I was an asshole right up in the, I'd say maybe first year of university, and I think you just start to grow up, but you know, own it. You know, I always said I prefer somebody, if you're an asshole, right, but you're like, right, this is who I am being myself, and I'm just currently a bit of a fucking asshole, but I'm being truthful to my own individual self. I always would respect you. You know, like I'd say if you go back to school, I always preferred the person that would turn around and be like, you know what, don't really like that person, think they're a bit of a dickhead, versus the person that would turn around and be like, you know, I'm not being a bitch, but I kind of like, you know, I really had a lot of time for them, but I lost a lot. It's like, no, like don't sugarcoat it. You're being a bitch. At least the other person can turn around and admit it. Do you know? I always had more respect if you were straight up, but yeah. I was an asshole too in school, but I think you kind of, well, maybe some people still think I still.
I think as well, because you have your own reputation, and then you go through, like, especially for me, I had my own reputation, and then I like completely evolved into this brand new person, and it's so funny because people are like, well, did you see that she did this and such and such? Her meant to be a fucking meditation teacher or whatever, blah blah blah. And here on. You know what I mean? Like I put my hands up and I'm fucking transparent about all the crazy shit I did in my life and all the damaging behavior that I did as well. And it's the only reason I woke up is because I had loads of fucking damaging behavior, like things I used to, you know, like I would make my ex, I would like sometimes break up with him just to get him gravel. Yes. Like, that. And I admit stuff like that on my Instagram. I'm like, that was the kind of person and damaging person I was because I did not love myself. That wasn't, even when you look back and you think that's a fucking bitchy thing to do, but it's, when you look internally, that's a girl very hurt, needing validation, needs her boyfriend to run after her. And please, so that makes her feel good. That's fucked up.
But then the thing is, it's like, I think a lot of people would relate to that and have had some experiences with that. But I think it's a very uncomfortable thing to have to look deep within yourself. That, and like I've had to do that as well. It's quite scary to think that you're capable of toxic traits or toxic behaviors, or that your actions could have hurt other people. That's a very uncomfortable thing to have to process. But you know, I think the more open that we are, or at least that we try to be, I think this is the thing when you say about the small town syndrome. I think very much in Ireland here, there still is that kind of mentality where we love to like nearly shame people. Like it's like, oh, did you hear about so and so? Oh God, isn't that terrible? Da, da, da. And did you hear about Sally Ann down the road? Oh God, Jesus. Oh fuck, yes, yeah, I've heard they've broke up, her and the partner. Oh God, you know, and it's just like all this type of mentality. But the thing is, when we gossip about people, we're also internalizing what other people say. That classic saying, what Susie says about Sally says more about Susie than it does Sally. So sometimes then we're then conditioning ourselves thinking, fuck, like say if you were going through a tough time or something happened, or if you really needed to reach out, or if you wanted to be open about a past mistake, you're going to be afraid to do that there. Because you already are aware of the kind of condemning judgment that's kind of, do you know, from your environment.
Yeah. And I think people need to remember that with having their kids around as well. Like I always say that as well. I always say, like, if you're sitting there and you're talking about maybe someone's put on weight or something like that, you might be just saying that you're gossiping and you're just stating it. Oh yeah, she's put on weight. But like in a sense, if you gossiping it with your friends, the child sitting next to you internalizes that if they put on weight, they're going to be the talk of a friends. So it's just like, we need to just be careful of like how we're doing it. But like when I went home, like I just noticed a lot of things I had to like in me as well. But it's also like we're not doing it on, it's like when you go back doing it on purpose or on badness, like they're just doing it to fill conversations because that's just what people do. Like you're just like, oh, and like I find myself like, I find out something, I'm like, Mom, like I'm like, oh my God, I can have a conversation with my mom about this. And then I'm like, no, I can have better conversations. But then those better ones are uncomfortable. Like, well, Mom, I feel kind of low today because I'm triggered what Jack said or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So it is hard to go from gossip and to like, do you ever be in a conversation where they're gossiping
Yeah.
and you don't want to be there, or how would you?
So, and it's quite unfortunate that it has to kind of be this way, but I think until you firsthand experience being the subject of gossip, then you understand. I think you've more empathy towards it, so you try to be more conscious of whenever you're around it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to turn around and make out as if I'm Mother Teresa here, sitting like, you know, there is obviously like sometimes it can be tricky to kind of shut out, and sometimes it can be maybe if you're like I've often found sometimes if I've been in a conversation and I maybe like, oh, like I don't like, why are we all sitting, like why is everybody talking about this here, I don't really think this is fair. And sometimes it can be tricky to be that person to have to stand up and go, look everybody, like let's not do this, because you're already, you know what you're going to do, you're going to create this awkward, nearly like as if you've just come in like a referee and you're like blowing up the whistle and then everybody's looking at you like, why are you not playing along here? Like, you know, why are you so like hypersensitive? But the thing is, so like, this is what I try to tell myself. I'm like, right, if I don't get to see my friends, especially in times like this, so if you have some sort of contact or communication with a friend, do you really need to be sitting talking about other people? I would personally rather talk about like, oh, like, you know, what are you at? What's your goals? What's like, you know, things about them and about what they're actually doing. We don't need to be talking necessarily about other people, but of course it does still happen. I think for me though, from being, obviously I've been like the subject of gossip where people have gossiped about me and, you know, like things like that and stuff. And to be honest, it's not nice. It's not pleasant. And I think definitely you prefer not to hear it. I would rather not know what people say. But I think what I
like out, like some of it's really out there, isn't it? Like some of the stuff they say.
Yeah, very. It's kind of like some things. It's like where did that come from? It's really but you try not to. I think the key is to not internalize that, because once you start to, I think what you start to do is once you start to entertain gossip, you start to then do this like dot to dot. So you're like, right, well, just does this person think this, or does that person think that, or where did this kind of originate from? And the thing is, it doesn't have to necessarily originate from anywhere. You'll never understand why people are talking about you the way they are. So I think you're better to just shut it out. Like, I don't go looking for trouble. Do you know? I find it nearly as a form of like self-sabotage. Like, why would I go and try to find out what people have to say about me behind my back?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter anyway, because they're just going to chat about you anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't define you, and this is the worst part about it is because sadly, I think as humans will overthink it more than what it actually is. So to anybody who's maybe ever been gossiped on, or maybe if you have that fear that you fear about people talking about you and stuff, people just talk. It's just noise filler. It's just filling like air. It's pointless, but like it's quite, what I've always said is like 1 minute somebody could be talking about you, the next minute they're going to the fridge and they've completely forgot what they're talking about. Some people nearly go to the extreme. They're like, God, I can't stand that person, I think they're such a total twat, right? And then the next thing is they'll walk past them in the street, oh well, what's the crack, how you keep to tell your ma's asking about her, and they actually forget what they said. It's just noise.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
when you have that mentality, when you look at it as this is just noise, it's just people just chatting, like just chatting shit just for the sake of chatting shit. Try not to take it too personal, internalize it, but as well try to also modify it. If you're experiencing your own relationships where people are always, you know, if that's all they ever talk about, that is quite toxic, and I think it's definitely worth challenging. But people can grow, so yeah, but they can't grow until you turn around and call it out, if that makes sense.
I just say silent. I'm just like silent and just let people stay with their own stuff, and then like they just know not to gossip in front of me, and they just get used to it, and like it becomes better. Your friendship becomes better.
Yeah.
Like that. But since we're on that conversation of like what you talk to your friends about, like what I would talk to my friends would be like, okay, so what is your goals? Like, and I actually really want to know what it is that you want to do next.
Me?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So to be honest, I actually had a bit of a what the fuck am I doing with my life? So this could became at a better time. So I think for me, so I have like a full-time job. So I work Monday to Friday, and then as well as that, so social media is mainly like, I would call it more so a hobby with obviously like working benefits as well. But predominantly it is a hobby. But for me, I kind of think I had a place where I started to not really enjoy social media. And as we were discussing earlier in the podcast, like that kind of when you hand the paintbrush over to somebody else, like you lose your kind of own authenticity. I kind of hit that place. I was nearly becoming a bit of a people pleaser. I was trying to really like modify my content so it nearly accommodated everybody. Meanwhile, but then I wasn't like doing what I wanted to do. So naturally it began to feel quite chore, like I didn't enjoy it. So I kind of hit that place of like, right, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to become? And I couldn't put that in a box. I don't know if anybody will relate to this, but I couldn't actually vision myself like, right, it's like I want to be like an accountant, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a stand-up comedian. I couldn't visually see the box. And I think we often do that. I think it's called like sense making, where we feel the need to put things into certain boxes just so we can kind of understand it. But for me, I then try to think, right, let's strip it all back a minute. So I kind of stripped everything back, and I was like, right, what is the one thing that you enjoy? Like, what is the thing that kind of gives you that feeling? And for me, it's making people smile and laugh. If somebody laughs, it's like a magnetic thing. I feel like if somebody laughs, I laugh, and it just gives me this massive high. And that's the thing that I love the most.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about your laugh.
Right. Stop it. Stop it. But it's like I
was just laughing.
Stop. I can't help it. It's terrible. It's like a witch. It's so witchy. I don't know, but you see, whatever, it's just, whenever you're around them kind of energies, and it's like somebody's laugh or somebody's enjoyment, it just gives you that like euphoria. And I think that's what that is what I love the most. It's what kind of gives me purpose. So I think that's the only thing I can really answer. And I think at the minute I'm on a journey to kind of try to figure that out as to what direction. But I think that's what this is why I've now reconnected with Instagram again, and I love it, because I think I've now realized I love making people laugh, and I love connecting with people and sharing laughter with other people. And for me, that's what I love the most about it, coming on and having the crack with people.
You are very good at it, I have to say.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're literally, I have to watch you every day. Me and Siobhan are like, let's sit down and watch it. And it's always interesting. It's always very on point with cultural, just current affairs and just everything.
I know. I love pop culture and Hun life and stuff. Have you don't follow the page Love of Huns, no?
Oh yes, you made me follow it.
It's amazing. But no, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think at the minute, if I had to say where's the goal or whatever, I think I kind of want to go on a bit of a soul searching kind of journey. So I've kind of made a plan that with my work and commitments, I'm going to try to maybe I'm going to do something different, or to try to change it, and maybe go and try something new for a while. Because in my own job, I've been in it now nearly 4 or 5 years, so I'm now kind of starting to maybe slowly think God, I've just announced this on a podcast. I think you better go to HR. But I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about I want to do something different, and maybe even travel. I don't really know, but I think I kind of want to still explore. I know
there's a job.
I know.
Franco. Oh, right. So we want to have a little discussion today as well about filter or no filter, because there's a whole movement right now about. Well, I personally have been in the middle of it, because I used filters not all the time, but I don't use them really anymore, apart from when I'm really hungover. I wish I could say it was my own doing, but when you live with Siobhan, me and her had a massive, a really bad argument once about filters.
Really?
And I was like, okay, he feels this strongly, and I was like, because I came out one day and I was like, coming on chat and doing a haul, I was in a filter, I had my makeup all done. She came out and she just came storming out of the room, and here's me. And she was like, why the fuck are you wearing filters? And I was like, at this point, I actually was so oblivious. I was just I don't know, I just want to. And she was just like, you look fucking stunning. Why are you wearing filter? And I was So me and her had this massive argument, and then we fell out the whole night. And I was just like, why didn't she just accept me for me and my filters? So we had this conversation, and then as she does have a point in terms of if I think I need a filter, what do young girls think? Whenever she was like, "Oh, you're pretty, so why, like, if you need it, then what do you think they need?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just think it's fun." And then I'm like, "Is it fun or is it damaging?"
Yeah. Um,
Because you
I
still use them.
I
It's
still
weird. Like, it's probably so good for you.
you see, I still right. But I think this is what I really want to say. I do agree with Siobhan. But I'll put it like this. I like a filter for its colors, and it's nothing to do with modifying how I actually
Yeah.
physically look. It's more, if I'm being honest, this is the truth. Anytime I take a photograph, I'm more concerned about the background. It's, but that's because I have like a more of an artistic eye. So it's like painting and things like that, colors, tones, like saturation, things like that. That's, I love to play about with that. And I do enjoy that as a creative process, but I wouldn't edit myself. Of course, we're all maybe quite will do a bit of smoothing or whatever and like touching up, which obviously if you do too much of it, it can be quite triggering. But I don't reshape anything. I wouldn't change the shape of my body, the shape of my facial features. I want to still look like myself, but I do like filtered. This is kind of the way that I think for me, this is the way I kind of do it, but I'm more conscious of it now. I like for photographs on the say like my Instagram feed, like I like them to be artistic. I like the kind of grid presentation. That's just me. And I don't do it for anybody else. I'm not doing it for validation. I'm not doing it so people will think that I'm pretty or this or that. I just do it because I like the look of it. And that's just
Yeah, aesthetically
creatively.
pleasing.
It's nearly how I would like me to look, like my soul to kind of like my artistic kind of eye. That's how I like it to be presented. So
Yeah.
that for me is a creative reflection. That's me like projecting something from within. But then on Instagram stories, like I'll come on my Instagram stories and look like a thumb. Do you know what I mean? And I'll not care about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, but I have now been more conscious. I think what I'm seeing is I never would have used them filters, that give you like the fake eyelashes and stuff. I personally, well, I
Yeah.
just never would have wanted to
It's
have a pair.
different because you're a male.
A male, I think. So I never would have done the stuff that was trying to enhance my beauty. But I would have used a filter just to change the color tone of the story. But I'm now starting to realize how inaccurate and how wrong that can nearly be. So I'm very much
Well, no,
aware.
I actually agree with you there. Like, I do agree with it. Like, I miss the static pleasing colors
Yeah,
of my filters. And then I was like,
yeah,
oh, can I bring them back? Like sometimes when I look outside and I love like filtering like the greens and the blues and like stuff like that. So I'm like,
yeah,
can I bring it back? But then there is
yeah.
times where I looked back and I was like, oh my God, my whole fucking Instagram stories were fucking orange.
I know.
So I'm not like,
I know.
just but I do agree with you. I think that should be aesthetically pleasing, but I'm seeing a lot of people at the minute like Kiki Fit and
Yes.
seeing, yeah, like all these people stripping it back. And I was just like, I don't know, just makes it more appealing to me as well. But like,
Yeah.
filter the odd time,
Yeah.
especially when you're fucking hungover. A little
Yeah.
bit for aesthetic pleasing, and on your
Yes.
grid, I think fucking anything goes because
Yes.
it's your creative palette.
That's it. Yes, I completely. Yeah, and for everybody, this is the thing. But I do. What I will say is this, though. I think sometimes, I think as people, obviously on social media, I think we can sometimes take things quite literal. I think if you like a filter, you shouldn't be condemned for liking a filter. I think that's silly because like if you know, everybody's different. If that makes sense. If you like to use it, but it's not detrimental to your own self-esteem, then that's okay. But then if you are finding that you're using filters to look a certain way because you're not happy with how you look within, then I think it's maybe time to start to maybe challenge that a wee bit, if that makes sense. And I think as well, what I will say, which I think is fantastic, is it's starting to normalize like like the
Yeah.
filter free kind of movement, if we call it that. It's really you're starting to see people for themselves. And it's like I think imperfections are like beautiful. Like say if I really know somebody, I'm like, oh God, like I love that wee freckle that you have, like, above your eyelid, or like everybody has these wee kind of different characteristics to themselves. And I just think that makes you so unique. And sometimes with a filter, that just really washes it out and nearly makes us all look like clones. So it's great to kind of see people's individuality. And as well, like, you might see like, oh gosh, like, you might see something physically that you might have in comparison. Meanwhile, if you think about it, if we're comparing how we actually look at ourselves in the mirror to a filtered image, that is of course it is very damaging, and we've all, I felt even insecure. I look at people like, wow, like look at their bodies, and then I look at myself and I'm like, oh gosh, like I do really love Chinese takeaway a bit too much. We need to maybe do something different about that. But the thing is as well, I am me and they are them, and they are, and you must also remember that that's the best version of themselves put forward, where they're obviously like posing and ready for the photograph. So I think by having maybe this, like, obviously you see people in a filtered light, then you see people maybe without a filter. It's good to show the versatility, so then you're knowing that you're not judging it as literal, more so artistically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so I'm
we
for
need
both.
A bit of both, and we need to see the real in everybody, because there's some people I didn't see the real of for a very long time until this movement.
Yeah, I'm like, I know. I know. But then what you often find, the pleasant surprise, it's like, not the pleasant surprise, God forbid, but me, like, if I'm watching America's Next Top Model, but like it's like wow, like I can see you, because some of them are ridiculous, like, you know, the ones like with the wispy lashes, and you've got blusher and everything, and like this like bubble gum like lip gloss, and it's like,
don't you look good though sometimes. Like,
have you ever?
This is scary.
Have you ever had this, right? Where say you're doing it. I this happened me one time. I was like, I had a filter on. I think it actually happened me last week, and the filter came off. You know, whenever like you maybe move too quick, and I actually thought that literally I seen a fucking like the ghost, or like like the Exorcist. I was like, oh fuck! I was like, what the fuck is that on my phone? I was like, oh shit, that's me.
So I thought today we could do a little agony aunt, because you do a little bit of agony aunt. I do a little bit of agony. I can't say it.
Agony aunt.
And I just thought, like, I asked people already for questions to see what they were saying. But there's some we can just discuss straight away. Like, for example, friends with benefits.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Are you speaking from experience?
Experience from different ways. I dipped my foot in the pond, but I didn't get hurt, thankfully. It just didn't work out. But I've also had I think a lot of my friends that would have had similar experiences. I think the problem is, this is the thing I think that's quite damaging about friends with benefits. I think that we're all really trying to convince ourselves at the start that, like, yo, like, I'm so mellow, like, I'm so cool, like, this is just gonna be like, you know, like, just like physical and fun. There's not going to be no complications. But the thing is, obviously, like, once you build that physical connection, you're like, you know, it isn't that straight away, it's no longer a friendship. Like, you've now moved that relationship into something a lot more deeper and complex, because you've connected in a different way. And, you know, like, everybody has different views and values, especially when it comes to like sex and sexuality. But I do often find that I think both male and females, like, that's a deep connection. I personally do believe, I understand like one night stands and like things like that, but if you're having like a friends with benefits situation, you're going to be like connecting intimately before, you're going to be connecting intimately after. It's not this clinical like thing where it's just like a one physical action and then it's done. It's like it is a relationship. And then what you often find is that I think both people end up developing feelings, and I often find that it does stereotypically seem to be the male, but I think usually one kind of fears the commitment. One's maybe a bit like, oh gosh, this is getting too serious, or it's always this is getting a bit too serious now, and then it kind of shuts out. And then I think usually it stereotypically seems to be the female that would be obviously left hurt from the situation. Obviously it could be the male as well, but I do believe that both connect physically, then it goes deeper, then one goes whoa and gets cold feet. They're not ready, fair enough, you know, but I think this is why it's quite risky to experiment with it.
Yeah, and I think people can have casual relationships. I don't really believe in sex or friends with benefits, because I just cannot imagine being that close to someone and just being their friend and using them for sex. Plus, yes, you can do sex by yourself. Like, do you need to? No, like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just like, no. I mean, it might. You know what? I don't know one person it's worked for ever. So no. It doesn't work in a sense, because someone does get more involved, and then you've got, but it's just a way to keep people, like, I did the whole casual thing for as long as I was like, keep it casual, I'm trying, but that was my way of like covering up and like trying to keep my heart shielded. But also it does end up in like liking them as well. So for me, friends benefits is a no-go. It's a no-go.
But that's,
and like, you know, you're just kidding yourself, I think.
That's literally what I was just about to say. You're only fooling yourself. I think what I'll say is this: let's be real, there has been situations where people have started off as friends with benefits, and then they both ended up getting married and have maybe 3 kids, and they're living happily ever after.
Yeah,
that happens as well. Exactly.
I was like, this is gonna be great. I have someone down the road that I can just call when I'm drunk.
Like
and now I'm like in a long distance relationship across the whole fucking world. I'm like, what the fuck?
But the thing is, you weren't like, I think what I find is, I think if you're not looking for it and you're not trying to control it, so you clearly had let go of some control. Obviously, this just organically happened and developed into this, and this is why now it's effortless to make it work, because you've built that connection. But I think if you're going in trying to be like, oh, this is only friends with benefits, or oh no, like I'm a player, like I'm committed to the game here. No, you're going to get hurt. Like the people who are like, if you deny it the hardest, you'll fall the biggest slap. So I think once you start to develop feelings, you are in a friends with benefit situation, you have to just have that conversation, rip the band-aid off, be like, look, I have feelings for you. I just want to know, is the feelings mutual? If they say no, at least you can go like, right, well, do you know what? I'm going to pack my bag. See you later. This was fun. Let's leave this where it is before any more hurt or misery can happen.
I think that's another question as well. Yeah, because people are saying like, how do you deal? Like a lot of people don't want to deal with that rejection, so instead they just kind of mold themselves to what that other person wants. So they just continue to be casual, and then another like people are just asking like, how do you deal with rejection, or how do you deal with like ghosting? I've personally been ghosted before, and it's like, okay, how do you deal with it? But like, it's not actually. For me. I'm just like, have I ghosted before? I think I may have. I feel like sometimes it's easier to ghost. I know it's so naughty, but I just feel like when I got ghosted, right? So I was seeing this guy, and I was seeing him like I felt like we were quite serious, but like anyway, just ghosted me and got back with his ex. But I feel like he just did me a favor, because like instead of dragging it out, he just cut the cord. And he should have done it in a better way, in a better conversation. But no one straight away, no one at that time that wasn't meant to be. That was just redirection for me, and I just dealt with the rejection because I was just like, we just don't match. Like, we're just not compatible with each other. Like, he's more compatible with someone else, and I'm more compatible with someone else. And like, I think if you have that self-love and you start that self-love journey, you can easily take rejection. Whilst if you need someone else to validate yourself, usually like people are just molding to the other partner to exactly what they do, so that they don't leave them, which is the worst thing to do, because you've got to be yourself. And then if you're yourself and they don't want to be with you, like, that rejection quick is the best, because you don't have to pretend to be anyone you're not, and you just get the rejection and you're like, bye. And like, you have to realize that you have to go through so many fucking rejections to get your Prince Charming. Like, there's so much, and people are like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's not that. Like, you two are just got the wrong values. You just don't work well together. There's somebody out there who will literally love you for everything that you are. So that's how I do rejection.
But it's funny you say this, because it's like, I think I can completely relate to this. I like, dating wouldn't be my strongest area, but I think for me, what I've learned is, to anybody, that this is the truth. You see what you already have like built in your head, like that narrative, what you're fearing. Like, if you're thinking, oh gosh, like, I don't want to tell them that I like them, because then they'll think that I am this or that or whatever, and then they will run for the hills or blah 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 or whatever. What you fear is always worse than what actually happens. It's nearly like we catastrophize a wee bit or something. So the fear of rejection is always worse. And this is from somebody who has been rejected multiple times. But what I feared was worse. I was like, oh gosh, like, I knew whenever, like, you're nearly like kind of like, oh, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, it actually wasn't that bad. Wait a minute, I'm still breathing. Wait a minute, I'm actually okay. I thought I was going to react worse to that. So what I will say is, like, you must always remember that whenever you go into situations, you always still have yourself. And I think before you go to a place where you're starting to like look for relationships, you must have a relationship with yourself. And I very much realize the importance of that, because you'll, number one, know your worth, you'll know your boundaries, and I think you'll know the type of people that you align with, and then you will attract people that obviously share similarities and interests with you. And if you get any whiff or like smell of bullshit, you'll be very quick to go, no, I don't stand for that, and you'll not want that. But you have to get to comfortable place yourself. What annoys me, though, I know this is completely off topic, is I think though, like now, once you hit the over 25 club, obviously, like you're now in that category in the X Factor. It's a bit of it's an ego, it's an adjusted ego. Like we're standing beside Wagner and Mary Byrne. But anyway,
that's all I think about as well.
I know, I know. I got, and she, God, no, like, you know, that's a sin. But you know, we're not ageist here. But I'm just saying, it is when you hit over 25, you kind of start to have that panic where you're like, gosh, like, you know, I need to get the wheels in motion. I need to get, like, you know, I need to get a deposit down in the mortgage, and I need to get, like, you know, a relationship, and I need to be married, and I need to have a kid, or I need to go to the bank and put the eggs in it. And it's like, honestly, like, you know, like, don't put that pressure on yourself. It will happen within its own course. There's no conventional rule book of where you're meant to be at a certain stage in your life. But I often find, because of this, then people start to really be over accommodating just to try to make something work. Meanwhile, something is just meant to naturally work. It's like a jigsaw. You can't just keep trying to force a piece in. It will either click or it won't click. And if it doesn't click, you're better to know that straight up. So don't fear that rejection. It could have done you a favor. It's basically a shitty way of somebody's just the word telling you, like, look, that's just not the one. So, you know, you make it back out there. And that's all it is.
And like, even in my inbox, like some of the things is this, they're like, my ex did the worst thing to me. He led me on for months. And that's a very good example of cutting the cord when you feel it as well, because there's nothing more hurtful than someone leading you on and they just didn't have the balls to tell you. And
I know, no.
Like, could have cut her off at that point, and then she wouldn't have just been led on like this. And I think that can be the most hurtful thing. So people always ask me that as well. They're always like, I don't really know if I want to be with him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, explore all the options within yourself. And if you're 100% sure and you're ready, then cut the cord, because it will do them a favor and it'll do you a favor. But
I know, but it's always, I always say easier said than done. But it's but I've realized from previous experiences, I think the worst thing that you can always do is evaluate the other person. I noticed that I was nearly like Mystic Meg sometimes, like, and I would have been looking for hidden meaning. So say, for instance, if they turn around and they were like, I think I don't want to be with you, I'd be like, oh, that's reverse psychology. They're saying that to me because they actually do want to be with me. And it's like, no, you have to honestly take somebody for face value. You, like, do not be trying to work somebody out, or even, and I get it, I've been with a confusing individuals in my time, and it does that. You cannot work somebody out. Like, don't be sitting, like, for instance, like, why would I be sitting internalizing what somebody else is thinking, or trying to work out what they think or how they feel about me? Should I not be more concerned and like, wait a minute, how does their actions make you feel? How does them, like, letting you down whenever they said that they were going to maybe see you this weekend and then making up an excuse? Why are you sitting trying to work out the meaning and the logic behind their excuse? Why, like, how does that actually make you feel? Are you happy? Is that somebody you want to, like, you know, we often judge relationships based on the other person, and that's whenever we start to become over accommodating, and the more that we tolerate, the more that people will take advantage of us, and that's what you often tend to find. And then unfortunately, it seems to be that then whenever things go a bit south, or if a relationship kind of hits that point where it ends, then somebody's been left, like, you know, their whole self-esteem's been shattered because they've just for such a long time bent their back trying to make something work that naturally was not meant to work. And sadly, you've the other person who's taken full advantage of that.
Yeah, but you've allowed that with your boundaries.
But you've allowed that.
Yeah, because people are always like, they say the same thing to me, like, you know, he keeps going out every weekend and getting fucked and going out for 4 days, and then he says he's going to change, and then blah blah. And I'm like, okay, so you've put down your boundaries, and he's broke them again. That's what, 6 times every weekend he's broke them. Your boundaries are there because most people in situations like that have children or something like that. That's like a boundary that you have to be home at the weekends. That's fine. But I'm like, it's not his fault now. It's your fault, because there's your boundaries being broken. You have to take emotional responsibility at that point. Say, okay, it's my fault. I've told him what it is that I want from him, and he's breaking it. So now it's on me. So it's good to because sometimes you just think he's the dick, and she or he is like, oh well, they're fucking dick, and you know, you can listen to your friends, and you're like, well, aren't you telling him what you want? And then he's just breaking it. No, you need to take full responsibility for yourself. It's hard pill to swallow sometimes, but
100. Oh, completely. And it's very easy to always, like, nearly like place the responsibility in the hands of the other person, because we don't want to actually admit it, that we're actually hurting ourselves in a sense. But then the thing is like, you can't change people either, if that makes sense. So if you're going out with somebody, and if that's what they want to spend their times doing at the weekend, and if you've expressed that that's an issue, and if they keep proceeding to do that there, if they're not willing to make any kind of sort of compromise, then that's just not a match. Do you know what I mean? They're not necessarily doing anything wrong. If they want to spend their weekends going with the boys, drinking pints or whatever, but if you've expressed you're not happy with that, but they still proceed to do that, that's never going to really likely change, to be honest, if that makes sense. Because you can't, that's then the part where then it's like we're trying to nearly modify somebody to make them this perfect person, which we want, because we have this nearly fantasy of who we, I think in life we do have a lot of these. We imagine to be married by this age, and we imagine to be with this type of person and that, and we kind of like to nearly merge everything to kind of make it fit our own kind of fantasy. But the reality actually is this, like, no, you're not going to find any human being that will completely satisfy all your human needs. There will be things, there will be struggles, there will be problems, there will be disagreements. And I think that a lot of the time, if the disagreements are that overbearing, it's just not meant to be. And that's why I try to tell my friends, and this is like friends that have had heartbreaks, friends that have had like where their boyfriends maybe, say for instance, have maybe like betrayed their trust in certain ways. And I'm just like, look at it as a sign. It's just not meant to be. And it is easier to just let it be that and park it than to start to fall down that kind of well where you're starting to think every single detail, like why did they do this to me? Why would they break my trust? Will I ever be able to trust somebody else again? Because that's all quite problematic thinking, and you're nearly falling down that. It's like a domino effect. Meanwhile, if you just lift that one domino and go like, this just wasn't meant to be, you're able to move forward and heal and progress. And believe it or not, there is I do believe, I'm quite a romantic, I do believe there is somebody out there for everybody. And and the thing is, and that's the part. So just don't. I think when you don't stress, things just seem to fall into place.
Interesting.
In a way.
So we'll finish off with. I'm just talking through the questions to see what.
Wait, I just know rightly though. I think I've jinxed myself here. Can we do a podcast maybe whenever I'm 40, and if I'm still fucking single living at home, then I would like to then change my statement. There's not an issue with that. It's just not what I visioned for me. It's not what I visioned for me. Sorry, that's God forgive. Anyway. It's just not it's not the life I wanted, okay? It wasn't for me. It was never my plan, okay?
Look it out soon. Like, I was already living with my mom and dad, like, and I was like, I can't function. Like,
isn't it tough? It is. Oh God, that's terrible. Me saying
Gerry, like,
it is.
I can't. But you haven't really. You didn't. I moved away, so I was used to being away, and then I came back, and then like I was like an evolved, like spiritual person. I was so calm, and then as the time went on, I was like, Mom, you're not normal. Like, you're not normal. Like, you're insane. She doesn't let me do anything. She's absolutely crazy. Like, and it's so weird going into other people's houses and then being normal, because my mom's not crazy.
No, she's so cute.
No, can't do. Like, oh, right, okay. So we'll stick with. Oh, okay. So dating in the pandemic. Have you any gas stories, or any struggles? And just any Tinder tales?
None. Absolutely.
Nothing. You need to fucking get your life sorted here and get on that Tinder.
But you know what this is what I keep telling myself, and this is terrible. I always say when people ask me this, I'm like, oh, I'm just focused on work. But I think I've now realized, to be honest, I am quite introverted. Like, I think people might be a wee bit surprised. I kind of keep myself to myself, and I just do my own thing, and I like record my wee things and I'm quite geeky, to be honest. Like, I just like to, like, that's just what I do. It's my thing. But dating I don't make really any time for. I'm trying to consciously make more time for it, but I do find, I don't know, I'm maybe a bit too traditional, and I maybe need to kind of get with the times. But I just find internet dating very energy consuming. I just feel like I'm really trying too hard, or maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I haven't met anybody yet where I'm like the conversation's just flowing and flowing and flowing. It's very much like a, right, so tell me a bit about yourself, then I'll tell you a bit about myself, then da 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 da. And I find it quite formal and regimented, and then I just shut off, so I never really can give it a chance. Maybe I'm just not ready though. I don't know.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it is hard because I never met anyone on Tinder. Like, I've met up with people and went on dates, but like nothing has ever went further because it's like going with a stranger. So I've never actually had success. And what we were saying last night is like, because we were just like, we're telling Siobhan, I was like, you need to get on the ball. But then I was just like, you have to be more, because it is like superficial in a way, because like you're looking at someone's looks. And I know for a fact that like the last few people that I dated with, like I even remember swiping no to like one of the guys I was fully dating for months. And I'm just like, I would have said no to him if I never met him in real life. So it is superficial in that way. And like Jack wasn't even in my age bracket, so he wouldn't have came up on my Tinder if I didn't meet him and if I didn't know him. Yeah. So it's just like, it is better, but it's not possible. So.
But the thing is, for me, I'm very, like, as you said, I see like organic connections. I'm quite like, I don't really, I'm not the type of person where I'm like seeing like, I'm like, oh damn Daniel, like I'm not really like very, I don't like connect with people that easily. So I need to kind of get to know somebody in order for me to develop a physical attraction. I'm not like, wow, like they tick, that's a dish. I'm more like, once I get to know somebody and their personality and then I connect with them. But then that's tricky because I have to nearly be not a friend with the person, but acquainted in some way in order for me to be able to further that. And I think sadly at the minute with the pandemic, like organic connections are quite restricted, you know, so it's not that easy to just bump into somebody like, oh, hello, like, how are you? Like, you know, this is the way I kind of always imagine it, that I'm in this like book, like a wee book club, or I'm in a library. I don't even fucking read, so I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I'm, you know, I'm just mysterious in this. I looking up the books, and then I'm maybe reading this wee book, and then somebody bangs into me, and then we drop the book down, and then I'm like, oh, sorry, that was your book, and then I gaze into their eyes, and they gaze into mine, and they're like, oh, wow, that's a fantastic book, and I'm like, oh, wow, oh my gosh, you're so fantastic, and then it's like, do you want to grab a coffee? And I'm like, oh, okay, and you know, happily ever after. It's like, it doesn't fucking happen like that.
Sometimes it does.
No, it doesn't. It's like no. The ones I attract is like at a burger van at 2:00 in the morning. No.
Oh, we've all been there.
And I do not recommend.
Oh, I can't go.
So I know people are gonna be like, wait a minute, so he's in agony at? It's like, really? It's like, yeah, no, that's the reason why I'm good at it, because my life's a fucking mess.
I know, that's what I'm like. Everyone's always like, I am like a relationship fucking writer, and I at this stage didn't have a relation, like I wasn't in it. And I'm like, I read about it because I'm bad at it. I read about it all because I want to get better. So it's actually good. It's just a good combination. But
I know, and I think
say as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I think it as well. I've lived through the relationships, like the experiences of my friends. Like I've always been the go-to friend, you know. So I think I've nearly heard enough. I think I've nearly also heard enough to nearly put me off them a wee bit as well.
Okay.
Yeah, know, but a wee bit. But you know, no, do you know what? It'll be. I always say.
Can't wait.
I need to start reading though.
Yeah, you need to go to the library.
Need to go to the library.
And then you might bang into it. So thank you so much for coming on here today. I mean, everyone's been looking forward to this one. We've got a lot of excited people. Yes, come on, everyone loves you. You know, I'm just going to blow your company here.
Sinead.
And
yeah.
Right. So thank you so much for coming on, and don't forget to subscribe.